자, 오늘은 역사 상식 테스트로 한번 시작해보는 게 어떨까요?
좋아요.
다들 외교 장각 의궤가 뭔지는 아시죠?
저요. 그 병인양요 때 프랑스에서 약탈해간 책이잖아요. 근데 그 얼마 전에 또 환수했다고 들었는데.
그러면 직지 심경은 어디에 있을까요?
뭐지?
직지 심경 세계 최초의 금속발자인데 그 의궤 관람할 때 같이 하지 않았나요?
아직도 프랑스에 있대요. 근데 그것을 환수하려고 굉장히 노력하신 분이 하트아트 게스트시죠. 네, 리처드 패닝턴 씨.
저는 그 리차드 패닝턴 씨가 한국계 미국인 아닐까 싶었는데 한국에 살고 있는 미국인이라면서요?
그리고 우리나라 문화재 환수를 위해서 제일 앞장서는 분이 미국인이라는 게 좀 놀라워요.
근데 뭐 직지 심경은 다들 뭐 어떤 내용의 책이고 이런 거는 뭐 상식적으로 다 알고 계시겠죠?
네.
근데 직지 심경이 왜 프랑스에 가 있어요? 1880년대에 한국 초대 공사였던 프랑스인이 사갔다고 알고 있어요.
유네스코 세계 기록유산이니까.
금속 발자는 근대사 발전을 급격하게 이루게 한 문화이기 때문에 세계적으로도 엄청나게 인정을 받고 있는 거죠.
근데 세계 최초의 금속 활자 하면 솔직히 많은 사람들이 독일의 구텐베르그나 생각하잖아요. 그렇죠?
1970년대까지는 그랬죠. 근데 한 1972년에 프랑스 국립도서관이 소장하고 있던 직지 심경이 출품되면서 세상에 알려지게 됐어요.
리처드 패닝턴 씨가 역사학자인데 그분도 평생을 그런 줄 알았다가 몇 년 전에 우연히 이 사실을 알고 직지 환수 작업에 뛰어들었대요.
역사학자인데 왜 1972년까지 그 사실을 모르셨대요?
그만큼 이제 세계적으로 알려지지 않았던 거고 그때부터 우리나라에서 좀 열심히 돌려받기 위해 뛰었어야 되는데 사실 그 작업에 좀 소극적이었던 것 같아요.
인터넷에 직지 심경 검색을 해보면 그 환수 운동 관련해서 두 분이 떠요. 그 중에 한 분이 리처드 패닝턴 씨.
다른 한 분은요? 그 박병선 박사님이라고 프랑스 국립도서관에서 연구원으로 계실 때 직지를 처음으로 발견하셨어요.
그때가 1967년도인데 그때까지는 프랑스 박물관에서도 그 고려 직지 심경이 프랑스 박물관에 있는지를 몰랐대요.
박병선 박사님 당시에 13년 동안 3천만 종류 이상 책을 주셔서 찾았다고 하거든요.
그러면 지금 패닝턴 씨는 어떤 활동을 하는 거예요? 혹시 그 프랑스 뭐 박물관 앞에서 뭐 시위를 하거나 그런 건 아니겠죠?
지금 직지 환수 서명 운동을 하면서 사람들에게 알리는 걸 가장 중요하게 생각하고 하고 계세요. 100만인, 1000만 돌파 이렇게 되면 돌려받는 거예요?
세상이 그렇게 돌아간다면 얼마나 좋겠어요. 그렇게 쉽지는 않을 것 같아요. 물론 도움은 되겠지만.
근데 정말 이게 어제 오늘 일만은 아니잖아요. 그 박병선 박사님께서도 돌아가시 직전까지 수십 년 동안 해왔던 일이었고 이게 성과도 낼 때 되지 않았나요?
그러게요. 그래서 희망이 있는 건지 그리고 우리가 도움을 줄 수 있는 부분이 있는지 한번 여쭤봐야 될 것 같아요. 그러면 이쯤에서 키워드 정리해 볼게요. 자, 첫 번째는 어느 분이 주실래요?
저는 세계 최초의 금속 활자 어떨까요? 구텐베르그 아니잖아요.
그쵸? 그리고요?
한국 문화재 환수 운동을 하는 외국인 리처드 패닝턴 씨에 대해 궁금해요.
이렇게.
저는 이 직지 심경이 외교 장각 의궤처럼 다시 우리가 좀 돌려받을 수 있을지 이게 좀 궁금한데 이 환수 가능성이 정말 있는가 이런 부분도 좀 궁금해요.
네, 물어볼게요. 여쭤볼 게 굉장히 많을 것 같아요. 빨리 만나보고 싶네요. The Moveable metal printing press ushered in modernity and changed the world we live in. The credit for the invention is largely given to Johannes Gutenberg of Germany. By the 1450s, he was printing out pamphlets and Bibles by the thousands with his invention. But did you know that Korea's Jikji Simgyeong is the oldest document printed with movable metal? And this was in 1377, nearly 80 years before Gutenberg's press. So where's the Jikji now? We'll find out with today's guest on Heart to Heart, Richard Pennington of the Committee to Bring Jikji Back to Korea. Mr. Pennington, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So for those of our viewers who are not familiar with Jikji Simgyeong, could you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, well, Teresa, as you said, it was printed in 1377. It is a Buddhist document written by a monk named Baegun in 1372. It was printed in 1377 at Heungdeok Temple in Cheongju. However, it was not the first. It was not the first document printed on movable metal type. There were others as much as 150 years before that. But it is the oldest. It is the oldest. Somehow it survived all those years, the centuries. This one document survived, and it is so. It's really tangible evidence of the fact that Korea had a printing press, as you say, 200 years before Gutenberg.
And it's actually listed as UNESCO's Memories of the World back in 2001. So where is the Jikji now?
Where it's in the National Library of France in Paris. Would you like me to explain how it got there?
Yes, okay.
Okay, well, it was allegedly purchased by Victor Collin de Plancy, who was the first French ambassador to Korea in the year 1887. Now, I think it's important to point out that we don't know. He is said to have bought it. He may have, or he may not have. There is no proof, no documentary evidence. So he may have bought Jikji, or he may not have. It is our view, the view of me and the others in our committee, that it really doesn't matter. To us, Jikji is of such overriding importance that it has got to be returned to Korea. It should not be in France, and it's got to be in Korea. That's what we're all about.
And that's why you set up the committee, of course.
That's right, yes.
How-
We're trying to convince the French that it simply has to be returned.
I understand your efforts are coming up against a little bit of opposition from the French, and this is partly because of their veto power. Could you tell us how your efforts are
actually,
going?
I have not been in direct contact with the French at this point. Other people have reached out to France before, asking that Jikji be returned, and the answer has always been no. The most famous example involves former President Kim Jong-sam, who met with the French President Francois Mitterrand in 1993. This was when the KTX was being planned, and the French had their own high-speed train technology, and Korea wanted it. So Mitterrand, from my understanding, is that Mitterrand told President Sam, if the deal is made, we're willing to give Jikji and the Heungdeok archives back to France, back to Korea. Well, needless to say, that did not happen. The French reneged on this offer. The people at the National Library of France practically revolted, and so it took another, I'm not sure, 25 years until 2011 when Heungdeok archives were returned. However, Jikji remains in Paris.
Why is it remaining in Paris? Do they treasure the Jikji Simgyeong more than the Wagyu? Or is there any reason or rationale?
They draw a distinction. It gets back to de Plancy and whether he, in fact, bought it. There was no question that the Heungdeok archives were stolen during the military battle on Ganghwa Island in 1866. They took them back to France with them on their boats, although they had no right to do that. So there was never any doubt about that. And that explains why they were willing to allow the Heungdeok archives to be returned. To them, the difference is that Jikji was bought. Now, in my opinion, as I said before, we don't know that it was bought. It may have been, it may not have been. It doesn't matter. Jikji simply has to be returned, and that's the point we will make repeatedly.
Okay. I'd like to go back to that point about how it was acquired by the French. But before that, I think also our audience members will be quite curious, as am I. Mr. Pennington, you have a Korean flag on your jacket
true.
lapel there,
Yes.
but you are not a Korean,
No,
am I right?
that's
So
true.
you're an American
Yeah.
from Dallas, Texas. How did you become involved in this drive to bring back Jikji?
Well, I was a history major at the University of Texas, and I'm historically minded. And since the 6 years or so that I have been living in Korea, I've traveled all over the country. I've read numerous books on Korean history, and I would like to think that I have a fairly good feel for Korea and the Korean people, Korean culture. I'm not sure if that answers your question. I just I think that Jikji is a very important issue, and somebody needed to stand up and take action, and apparently that's me.
When did you first come across Jikji or hear about?
During my reading, I'd done some reading about it, but it wasn't until last summer, the summer of 2013, when I traveled to Cheongju and I toured the Cheongju Early Printing Museum. And at that time, when I finished my tour, I came out and I spoke to the director of that museum, and I asked him, why is Jikji in France? Why is it not in Korea? Of course, he gave me a simple explanation as to why. And I guess I knew that before. But it was on the bus coming back to Seoul where I just decided that I was going to do something. Whether it was successful or not, I was going to try to raise this issue, make it a public issue, and do what I could to, who knows, maybe it would be successful.
So to the best of your knowledge, there are no other efforts going on since 1993 to bring back the Jikji?
Oh,
Other than your committee?
I think there have been some academic people who have made contacts with their colleagues in France, and I think diplomatic efforts are being made. One is that I think the people at the National Museum of Korea and those at the Cheongju Early Printing Museum, they know what we're doing. They know that there is this ad hoc group of people who are, well, we have this petition. As you know, we have a petition with 3,600 names on it, and we just started an online petition last week where we are showing that quite a few people are willing to put their names on the line and tell the French that Jikji has got to be returned, and it's a serious issue.
And what has the response been from the National Museum and the Cheongju Museum?
Well, like I
would
said,
imagine they'd be very, grateful for your
that's true,
efforts.
but I think it's they take their orders from the top. So they're down here, and they're not going to. They do not have the freedom to make any kind of policy. So it's the really they don't have the freedom to say yes. We think Jikji should come back.
And I imagine the government would have to be motivated by public
That's
opinion,
true.
of course.
That's true.
And, well, we can't talk about Jikji, of course, without mentioning the historian Park Byung-sun, who was the librarian at the National Library of France when she first discovered the Jikji documents. I understand that she struggled for quite a while just to record and also pass on what was in the documents that she discovered. Could you tell us a little bit about her and her
I sure
efforts?
will. Ms. Park is the hero of this story, no doubt about it. As you say, she was working as a researcher, really. She was a graduate student at a university, I think it was the Sorbonne in Paris in the 1950s, when she came upon Jikji. Now, there's something a point that I have to make here, and that is Jikji came into possession of the National Library of France in 1950. De Plancy had died in 1924. He put it up for auction. It was bought by a man named Henri Weber. When he died, it was bequeathed to the National Library of France. So that explains how they took possession of Jikji. Now, Ms. Park, she was working as a researcher and a librarian there at the National Library when she came upon Jikji. It was covered in dust, and it had been misclassified as a Chinese document. Of course, this is, if you go back to 1377, it was before Hangul, before King Sejong had
Right.
invented Hangul, so it was printed in classical Chinese. The French did not know what it was. They really did not know what it was. It was just some old book printed in Chinese. So she found it and she dusted it off and started doing a little research and some testing. And well, over a period of time, she was able to document the fact that what Jikji was. And so, yeah, she's really the hero of this story. She was not treated well by the people at the National Library of France. They thought she was a spy for some reason, that she wanted, I'm not sure what they were thinking, but they made life uncomfortable for her.
They thought that she was there to unearth
Yes.
other hidden treasures
Yes,
of
that's
Korea.
right.
But of course, I think the significance of Jikji wasn't known, I mean, it was definitely not known in France, but also in Korea. Why do you think that is? Waegyu-장각, of course, I think many more people know about Waegyu-장각, but why not so much with the Jikji Simgyeong?
I'm not sure. Well, as I said, the French didn't even know it was there until she located it in 1967. And de Plancy, I'm sorry to jump back, but de Plancy, when he allegedly bought it, when he took possession of it in 1887, he didn't know. He did not know it was the oldest document printed on movable metal type. There's no way. It was just an old book. He thought, well, that's nice. I'll take that. So it wasn't until I think around the year 2000 that UNESCO got involved and some of those other people started really looking at it closely, and it became clear that yes, this was the oldest document extant document printed on movable metal type.
So now that you've become involved, and you also mentioned the National Museum of Korea and the Cheongju Museum also. So I understand that initially they were quite passive maybe, and they don't feel that they have the power to pursue this. Are they helping you at all, or are you in touch with the Korean government maybe? You said they take their orders from up there. So
Yeah.
have you been in contact with the higher powers?
In some cases, for example, I wrote a letter to what I was told was the Jikji expert at the National Museum of Korea, and I did not get a response. I'm not sure what to make of that. Maybe she didn't get the letter. Who knows? But at a later time, we will be making a more formal presentation to, first of all, the National Museum of Korea. Depending on what response we get, the Korean ambassador to France and the French ambassador to Korea. So you see, we have a lot of plans for bringing this attention to people who can make decisions, and we will.
I almost feel like it's David versus Goliath. It's you against the Korean government
That's
almost,
true.
and also
That's
the
true.
French government as well. And I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but the fact that you are not Korean, I wonder if that also somehow makes it more difficult to find supporters or also help for what you are trying to achieve. Have you come up against any of that?
I'm not sure. There may be some of that. I don't know. And what can I do? I think really most people are appreciative. They're appreciative. They see that somebody is taking the initiative and bringing this to the attention of the public, and that's what it required. And the fact that it's an expat, a foreigner who's doing it, well, that's okay.
Okay, well, good for you. And we wish you the best of luck. But it seems like more people really need to take an interest in Jikji Simgyeong if this movement or if this initiative is to really take off. And there's a movement going on to raise awareness right now. Let's take a look. A little cafe off the main road near Gangnam Station. This is the unofficial center of operations for the committee to bring Jikji back to Korea. For today's meeting, Richard prepared a timeline of events related to Jikji in both Korean and English.
This is the timeline of the history of Jikji starting in 1372 up to, as you see, the summer of 2013. It summarizes the whole history of, it's how it was printed at Cheongju in 1377, how Collin de Plancy allegedly bought it and took it to France, and there it has been since, well, they've had it for 127 years, and you know, our thing is we want to convince the French to send it back. Jikji has got to come back to Korea. That's the whole issue.
As befitting the committee's unofficial headquarters, the cafe is crammed full of information about Jikji. The committee is looking for more ways to raise awareness about Jikji. Facebook, comics, online petitions, podcasts. They're working on diverse platforms.
We're not interested in making compromises. Like, for example, if they suggest a loan to Korea where it comes here it can be put on presentation for a little while, then it goes back to France, we're not interested in that. That's not what we want. We believe that Jikji belongs here in Korea on a permanent basis. That the French have had it for 127 years, and that's long enough.
In Gangnam, the streets fill up with residents and
About
office
Jikji,
workers
we've
during
signed.
lunchtime. It's a great time for the committee to seek signatures. It's minus 10 degrees Celsius on this cold winter day, but that's not going to cool the committee's enthusiasm.
외국분이 나가서 갖고 프랑스에서 이제 우리나라 문화재를 다시 돌려받는다고 하니까 좀 저도 평소에 이런 생각을 이제 신경을 안 쓰고 있거든요. 그러다 보니까 좀 부끄러운 마음도 들고 좀 존경스러운 마음도 들고 그렇습니다.
굉장히 부끄럽거든요. 처음에는 아니 나도 솔직히 직지가 프랑스에 있는 건 알고만 있었지 이거를 돌려받아야겠다는 생각을 못 하고 있었어요. 근데 리차드가 저한테 와서 이걸 요청을 할 때 이걸 도와줘야겠다는 생각이 아니라 아 이걸 왜 내가 생각도 안 하고 있었지라는 생각이 드는 거예요. 뭔가 세상에 목소리를 내고 있고 학생을 가르치고 있는 사람으로서 그래서 리차드한테 좀 더 적극적으로 하게 됐고.
Currently, 3,700 people have signed the petition to bring Jikji back to Korea. All this started last summer when a history-loving American learned about Jikji by chance. We don't know if the groundswell movement will succeed, but we do wish them the best of luck.
As to why I'm doing it, I don't know. It's costing me some money and taking a lot of time and energy, but it seems natural, and so I'm very determined. We have a goal, and our goal we will not stop until we've achieved our goal.
So, Mr. Pennington, what is the current position or the current stance of the French government and the National Library of France? Have you been in contact with them, and how do you see the prospects?
No, not yet. I have
No.
not been in direct contact with them. Certainly that time will come. As I mentioned to you earlier, I have a friend who went to Paris not long ago, and he went. First thing he wanted to do was visit the National Library of France, and I think it's the Oriental Manuscripts room is where it is, and he wanted to see Jikji. He was turned down. The only certain scholars are allowed to see Jikji. It's not available. It's not. You can't see it if you want. If you wanted,
It's not open to the general public.
No, it's not. No, and no, I have not been in direct contact with the French yet. Although, in time, I will be. I
Is
think by
there
this summer.
official stance, or have they made their position quite formally known, or an official document or letter?
I don't
at
think
all?
so. I mean, I believe they have a law, a law which says anything that was purchased cannot be repatriated to the country from which it came. Which, you know, we've talked about that, the issue of whether de Plancy in fact bought it.
Right. And you say you might be in contact with them in the summer. Is that when you collect a certain number of signatures? You have 3,600 so far?
Yeah.
Are you aiming for a certain number?
No, it's not so much that. There are other people that we need to make contact with. You know, for example, the National Museum. Depending on what they say, if they want to support us, to get behind this movement, then that's all the better.
I wonder if you also thought of maybe collaborating with some other people in Korea who have also been trying to bring back artifacts. For instance, of course, the Buddhist monk Haemun.
Yes.
And he led efforts, of course, to
Yes.
bring back Queen Munjeong's royal seal last year from the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, because, of course, that seal had been stolen during the Korean War. Have you been in contact with perhaps Haemun or some other people who are actively working in this field?
Not yet, but we will. We will. He has done very valuable work. I admire this guy a lot. And yeah, what he's doing is quite similar to what we're trying to do. And he's been successful. So yeah, I take my hat off to him. He's done some fantastic work. I really admire him a lot.
Do you think the fact that he has been successful is the fact that it was proven that the seal was stolen, as you mentioned also with
Could
the
be.
Weegu Changgak,
It could
because
be,
it was
yeah.
proven that it was stolen?
Yeah.
So there's a very fine line between the legal and illegal acquisition.
Yes, that's right.
As you mentioned, there's no proof that it was legally bought by
That's
the
right.
French. But if there's no proof, then it's also hard for us to prove our
Yes,
point,
it is.
isn't
That's
it?
true.
So what
That's
is your
true.
stance on this? How can we get around this?
Well, my hope is that the French will, when they realize that the Koreans are serious about having it returned, that they will simply do the right thing. Be gracious about it and say, well, if the Koreans really want Jikji back home, then we will reluctantly let it go. And that's what I think they should do.
Is there a record of the French doing that? Have they been good about
Possibly
returning?
not. Possibly not. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I wonder if you have a message for the skeptics and some hope that we can cling on to, that who don't believe that the Jikji will be returned to Korea because of the legal status, et cetera, et cetera. Is there some hope that we can cling to? Is there a case where something has been returned?
Teresa, there are a lot of skeptics.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. There are quite a few people. One man at my law firm, he told me it's not going to work. You might as well just give this up. That did not deter me at all. I'm very determined. And I and the other people in my committee, we have a goal. We have a very definite goal, and that is we want Jikji returned. And we will continue to work toward that goal no matter what. So no, it's not a matter of getting a certain number of signatures or anything like that. We want to make contact with enough people, certain people in the government, first the Korean government and then the French government, and well, we will bring pressure. We'll bring pressure on them to bring Jikji back to Korea.
Have there been instances where other nations perhaps petitioned or strive for a long time to bring something back to their own country when it seemed impossible, when all the skeptics said, no, it can't be done, but they managed? Have there been some successful cases?
There must have been. There must have been. I'm not aware of that.
I understand that the Panama Canal is not quite a cultural
That's a good example.
artifact.
Sure.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah. The Panama Canal, was built partly by the French. The U.S. owned it for about 75 years. Now, the Panama Canal was a huge civil engineering project and worth billions, many billions of dollars. And you consider the difference between Panama and the USA much bigger than if there's a gap between France and Korea. And yet, look what happened. The Panamanians insisted that the Panama Canal was rightfully theirs, and sure enough, it was done. There was, in 1977, the treaty was signed. They have been the rightful owners of the Panama Canal ever since then. So yes, it can happen.
What do you think was the key to that success? Is it persistence? Is it public opinion, overwhelming public opinion or public support for the return?
That's a good
what do you think are the factors for that success?
I haven't looked at it that closely, but the government of Panama was putting pressure on the U.S. in every way it could, including some terrorist attacks. So that probably got their attention.
Do you think, what is the necessary approach to this issue? I mean, obviously, because it's a cultural artifact, I think we Koreans also tend to get quite emotional about it, and we say, oh, it's rightfully ours, and it was taken from us when we were at our
That's true.
weakest.
Yes.
But at the same time, for the French, the Koreans didn't recognize the value of it. We didn't steal it from them. We bought it from them. We acquired it rightfully, and it's part of our
Yeah.
cultural heritage
That's
now,
what
in
they
a
would
way,
say.
in their museums. So, is it right, or is it appropriate to take an emotional approach and say, no, it's ours, so give it back, or is it better to take the sort of rational and I don't know if there's a legal approach to this?
Yeah. I'm not sure whether our approach is so much emotional. We do think that Jikji should be in Korea. The fact that the French have had it for 127 years is long enough. And so I think that the government and the diplomats there's some discussions going on right now between the French and the Koreans, which is fine. We're in support of that. We're not against what they're doing, but we are, as I mentioned on an earlier interview that I did, we are living in a free and democratic country. We have the right to speak. We're not afraid. We're not afraid to speak up. We're not part of the government, and so we don't hesitate to say, here's what we think. We're not emotional about it, but on the other hand, we are telling the French, or we will, that we will not stop. The Jikji has got to be returned, and however long it takes, we will push.
Well, I'm here with Richard Pennington of the Committee to Bring Jikji Back to Korea, and we'll be right back after this.
That's what we want to do. We want to bring Jikji back to Korea. Maybe some young people, they don't know. They don't know what it is. And so, well, that's part of our effort. We're educating people. We're telling them what Jikji is and how really Korean people have a lot of reason to be proud.
I understand that UNESCO established the Jikji Memory of the World Prize. This was back in 2004. What is the prize for, and how did it come about? Are you involved in this at all?
I think it was in 2001.
2001,
Yes. This is around the time when UNESCO really started paying attention to Jikji, and there were some studies done of Jikji, and it was basically accepted by all of the academic people and historians that yes, this is the oldest document printed on movable metal type. So it became a very significant, whereas before it was, nobody knew quite what it was, all of a sudden it was, I'm sorry, not all of a sudden, by that point it was overwhelmingly accepted that this was such a very important document.
So why was this prize or this award created,
I'm
the
not
Jikji
sure.
Memory of the...
I don't know. Somehow UNESCO got involved, and I'm glad they did, because that gave the Jikji like the imprimatur, like the stamp of significance and recognition, which it really did not have before.
I understand you were in Cheongju for last year's awards ceremony. Can you tell us a little about that? Who was the recipient, and why was he or she recognized?
It was I think this is done every 2 years.
Okay.
The award is given every other year, and Mexico, some agency in the Mexican government, has to do with historical documentary archival stuff. And so they won, and that's fine. And I was there with some college students. We were gathering signatures on our petition, and we met with some of the UNESCO people and the winners from Mexico, and got their the lady who received the award, got her to sign our petition. So I thought that was very important to indicate to UNESCO for the first time that there are some people here in Korea who are working to get Jikji back, to bring it back France.
And I understand that you talked to the UNESCO representative at the awards ceremony. What was their response? Were they able to mention anything? I know they have to remain neutral.
Yes,
but...
that's right. Well, it was a lady named Joey Springer, who's the UNESCO representative, and she gave a speech that day. As you say, she had to keep a neutral stance. She could not favor one country over another. What happened was they were coming out into the parking lot of this large hall, and as I met them, several of them, and I gave an impromptu speech in which I told them that Jikji was far too important to remain in France, and that we were working diligently to have it brought back. And Ms. Springer, she heard my little speech, and she indicated in a quiet way that she was in agreement. So that told me we were doing something right.
So that was her personal opinion.
That's right.
When you say
Exactly.
quiet, I
That's
guess,
right.
Okay. So let's go back to a little bit personal background of your
Okay.
involvement, because just talking to you about this Jikji document, and you use the word "we" all the time,
Yes.
it feels like you're almost a naturalized Korean. You feel very personal and passionate about this cause. You
Yeah.
mentioned that you studied history. What got you interested in Korean history, and what brought you to Korea 6 years ago?
What brought me here was just a job. I got a job teaching at a Hagwon in Daegu, of all places. And I spent about a year there, and after that I moved to Seoul, and I worked as an editor at a law firm.
So you became interested in Korean history after you came to Korea?
Yes, that's right. You know, before I came here, to be honest, I did not know much more than Seoul was the capital and a little about the Korean War. I didn't know. I'd never heard of King Sejong or Yi Sun-shin or anything like that.
So from knowing almost nothing about Korean history to reading, from what I heard, 14 or 15 books on Korean history, what was it about it that fascinated you?
Well, this is my adopted home, and I love Korea. I've traveled all over the country, and I don't think I will ever know enough. Some of my Korean friends, they make jokes that I know Korean history, or I've seen more of the country than they have. I don't know whether that's true, but I certainly do have a great feel for Korea. That's true.
Well, actually, I think I know why they might say that, and I think you might have seen more of Korea than I have, because you actually published a book called Travels of an American Korean 2008 to 2013, and these are the names of cities and towns that you've visited personally, all of them.
Yeah.
So how many destinations are there? It looks like several dozen.
There's many more than this is just what I could fit on the cover. There's more than that.
And so this chronicles your travels over 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, 92. There were a total of 92 trips.
That's amazing. And I understand, because you don't speak Korean fluently. There must have been some challenges
that's true.
while you were also traveling.
Of course,
throughout.
there are some problems. Sometimes I'm a hapless, hopeless expat, but that's okay. It's just part of the experience.
So what was your biggest impression traveling around Korea like this? What was your biggest impression of
That's hard to say. Maybe going to Dokdo. Yeah, that was a big thing, going to Dokdo.
How did you feel when you went to Dokdo?
I was grateful. I was very grateful to have made it there, because I know a lot of people try and they
Right.
don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it was a great experience.
I think the best way to wrap up our interview is really to explain to our viewers once again why Jikji Simgyeong is so important and so valuable to Korea especially, but also just to make it known where it really came from. What is the value of Jikji Simgyeong?
Well, the printing press was not invented by Gutenberg. That's what has shocked so many people. The Koreans had their own version of the printing press. It was somewhat less advanced. It was not as advanced as what Gutenberg had 250 years later, but nevertheless, it was what I call the first printing press. That is of serious significance. And Jikji was printed here in Korea. It was written by a Korean, created by Korean artisans on a Korean invention. you see, there are all these reasons why it should be here. And we will not rest until it is brought back. That's our message.
Well, we'd like to thank you for your efforts and also wish you the best of luck in your endeavors. Especially good luck with your first trip to France and your meetings with the French officials this
Teresa.
summer.
Thank you very
So
much.
the best of luck. And also thank you for taking the time to come speak with us here on Heart to Heart.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that was our interview with Richard Pennington of the Committee to Bring Jikji Back to Korea. You can watch a rebroadcast of this program on our homepage, IDEONTV.com. Join us again next time. Bye-bye.